What will the next generation of missiles, IR missiles, bring to War Thunder? Hello guys, once again, it's Matt. Thank you all the members and patrons. Make sure to subscribe, and today I wanted to talk about the next gen of IR missiles. I think the next step up of those, of the game basically, will be the next gen of IR missiles. We are getting closer to that, although we just got an upgrade on them at the start of the year or later, late last year, right? I still believe that the next step up will be sooner rather than later, and we're gonna get on why at the end of the video. But what are those next step or next gen IR missiles? These can include missiles like the Python 4 that is already in the files, but also the Mika IR, which is the IR version of the Mika missile, the R73M, the R74M, the AIM-9X with its blocks and differences between the models, the A-Darter, the SRAM, the IDST, the AM-5. There are many other missiles, but yeah, obviously we know they are just a lot better than what we have in IR guidance right now in the game, obviously. But what exactly are the changes that they made in these missiles to be so good? What are those missiles going to bring to the game? Well, I think first of all we need to divide these missiles in three categories, okay? We have at first the evolutions of existing missiles that are already in the game, like the R73M, R74M, and AIM-9X, which are evolutions from the R73 and AIM-9M, for example. The completely new missiles like the SRAM, AM-5, IDST. Most missiles are like that, although the AIM-9X is somewhat of a new project. It uses the basis of the AIM-9 to actually be cheaper. That's why the US, it's one of the reasons why the US chose the AIM-9X over the SRAM, of course. It's a lot cheaper to upgrade existing missiles to the 9X standard, right? And the third one, that it's probably the most interesting one, that we have something like the Mika IR, which is the IR version, the infrared version of the radar-guided Mika as well. The Python 4 maybe can even be included that, although the Derby was later produced with the basis of the Python 4, so it's the on the contrary, right? But it's the same, you know, it's somewhat similar if you really want to take into account. You know, it really isn't. It's a novice missile, but still, you know what I mean, right? But what can you expect from every missile compared to the ones that we have in the game? So the first thing, obviously, would be better turning. Even better than what we have. Yes, even better. Most missiles will have thrust vectoring control, so or better versions of thrust vectoring. So, for example, the R73 technically already have TVC, but it was a very rudimentary system compared to what we see in the R73M, R74M, for example. So even those that had some form of system like that got upgraded, and a full TV system was added. And even the ones that don't have a TVC, like, if I'm not mistaken, the Python 4 don't have it, I think. They have a canard and other systems to make it as maneuverable as the other missiles. But in general, everybody will have a jump. So right now we have 30 to 40 Gs of turning the IR missiles. On the very least, we will have a 50 to 60 G turn. So that's a lot. At 1/3 of increase, basically, or even twice as much of turn if you compare, for example, the AIM-9X to older models of the AIM-9, right? So it's really a big change. You know, that would be the first thing. These missiles would be a lot harder to evade just maneuvering. They are basically impossible right now, but especially like the R73, but it would be even harder, you know. The second thing, in a general sense, it would have more range. Of course, there are exceptions over here. Missiles like the R73M and 9X should have pretty much the same range, but they already have a good range, you know, comparing to the other ones. But everybody else will have more range and be on par with the 9X and the R73, right? So missiles like the Mika obviously would be like having the largest range overall. It would be way bigger than anything else. But everybody else would have an increasing range on their IR missiles, obviously, right? So increasing performance in turning while having more energy. More range basically means more energy, okay? More power, more thrust, more fuel. That's pretty much what it means. And on the third side of things, and I think the most important things out of these missiles is that it combines everything that we already talked about together with a more powerful seeker and a more powerful IRCCM, with a lot of them even having a combination of the IRCCMs that we have in the game, the FOV IRCCM, or together with the ignoring flares IRCCM, the turning off, shutting off the seeker IRCCM, or even like the 9X and some others, we'll have the full imaging systems having a much better chance of avoiding IR flares, right? Does that mean that these missiles will be literally impossible to avoid in the sense of dropping flares? No. As we have examples in real life, although these missiles are almost impossible to evade or really hard, they're not impossible at all, they seem like in theory, but in real life, there are ways of avoiding them. But those situations where, oh my god, how did I not avoid that missile happen, situations like that happen, when those, it will basically be an increased amount of them, so you will see more of these situations like, oh my god, this AIM-9M just doesn't allow me to leave, because every single turn and row and flare dumping that I did, nothing worked. And these types of things will happen a lot more, and from up close it will be very close to impossible to avoid it. These combine it with being able to lock from longer ranges and maintaining a very high gimbal limit. The 9X, I think it's like 90 degrees. It means that the missiles are really hard to avoid because they will have more energy, they will maintain the lock a lot easier, and we'll be able to maintain the turn to make that lock be able to happen and intercept happen a lot more often. Okay, so yeah, and of course with all of these together we have the last thing, which is the cherry on top of these additions, which is basically the efficiency of these missiles will be better. What I mean about that is that different electronics and systems were added to these missiles to make some very interesting things, like data link, inertial navigation systems, and be able to even loft. All of these systems combined together with some others will make these missiles be able to fly even without a lock with INS and lock it when it can. So even though it will maintain a lock a lot easier, it will be a lot harder to fool with flares. There will be a lot of the consequences that we already talked about. Even when it loses a lock, it will have many other systems to actually maintain it on track until it reacquires a lock again, making it possible to do 180 shots, for example. Yes, you would be able technically to fire on a target that is flying behind you. All of these missiles are very much capable of doing that. From the 90s upwards, basically all IR missiles that were developed between these nations and stuff basically could do that. So it's kind of scary, right? So with all of that combined, it will for sure be a bigger jump than what we had with the R60M and AIM-9L jumping to the R73 and AIM-9M, right? So I would expect these missiles to come when they're 100% needed, meaning that when 4.5 generations start to come to the game, where the performance of these aircraft will be so good that, we start to miss a lot of the missiles. And I gotta be honest, we are already kinda starting to see that in certain occasions, with the Gripen and some others. We will see that more and more, like when the Eurofighter comes, with the Rafale, with better versions of aircraft that we already have and stuff. When those types of things start to happen, then it's where these missiles will come. Remember, it's not only the missiles that need to go to the future and keep updating themselves on the game, I mean. It's the aircraft as well. It's the countermeasure systems. It's the radars. Everything needs to basically go together to the future so that we don't have a power creep. Like we had a little bit with the R27ER, for example. Or even if they added, I don't know, an R73 to a MiG-23 MLD back when the MLD was added, right? That wouldn't make a lot of sense, right? It's the same principle. So we are not quite there yet. I think the A9M, the R73, they're all good enough for now. But we shall see these missiles very soon, in my opinion. Very soon, I mean this or next year, and for sure they will bring another level of dogfighting missiles to the table. So let me know in the comments if you agree with me that these missiles will be almost way too good, and when do you think they will come. Let me know in the comments, subscribe, and I see you guys on the next one. Bye guys, see ya.